Challenges facing the industry. Well, I think that one of the big things facing the industry is going to be climate change, and South Africa is not the only place that's affected by that. And where people plant, but also which varieties they plant. And I think that people are going to be thinking in the future about which varieties work well in a drought situation where there's less water to go around, either varieties that work well in a dry farm situation or with minimal water. And those are going to be varieties which have worked historically in so-called Mediterranean areas, or and including Mediterranean in a broader sense, obviously, to include warmer climates around the world. So I think that's one thing people need to be thinking about very seriously. Where you plant is also going to be a big deal. Coastal is going to be cool, obviously, otherwise you need to go high. So retaining acidity in your grapes is going to be one of the big challenges of the future for this industry. It's a slow burn. I think that over 50% of the varietal wine sold in this market is Sauvignon Blanc. A lot of the wine sold around the world, which is South African, it's probably going to be blended stuff where people don't necessarily even know what the variety is. So it's going to be a slow progress. But I think some of these so-called Mediterranean varieties that retain acidity, Grenache Blanc would be a good example, Grenache itself, a good example, Mourvèdre, Assyrtiko from Greece if you want to get a bit more funky, Verdelho, all of those potentially I think have, are good grapes here. The one variety that is already well established here and works very well in a variety of climates is Chenin Blanc. Chenin Blanc has high natural acidity. I think it has a good profile. There's a natural link with South Africa because it's one of the oldest varieties, possibly the oldest variety that was brought into the Cape in the 17th century. So, there's no shortage of stuff. It's just a question of how you bring the consumer to water, as it were, or rather to wine, and get them to taste these wines made from new varieties. It's not going to happen overnight. I think it's something that we need to do progressively, but I do think it's important for the future of this industry. Your diversity is partly the diversity that the rest of the world has, but I think the two varieties that stand out, things that other people can't do, or at least don't have, would be Chenin Blanc and Pinotage. In terms of the potential, I think Chenin Blanc still has more potential. The varieties for me, red varieties that still have potential, would be Syrah and Cinsault. And I think Cinsault is again a sort of semi-Cape variety, partly because of its connection with Pinotage as one of the parents of Pinotage, and also its historic association with pre-Pinotage, if you like, Cape blends, the old Chateau Libertas style where you'd have Cinsault and some Cabernet or other Bordeaux varieties. So I think those two have got great potential. The other variety that I think has massive potential, and I may be alone in thinking this, is Sémillon. Sémillon, very historic. It was one of the most, possibly the most planted white variety in the Cape in the 19th century. There are lots of old vines around. We just have to get people to drink them.